out there. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from, whether you are watching us live or on the replay. You know, Thanks again for joining the Smarter Career Moves LinkedIn live show. And I am so excited to have Hannah Morgan here as my guest today. And you know, Hannah, I met you on Twitter, like back in the day when Twitter was the thing and we had the Twitter chats. And I met you at a conference when you were speaking, and you might not remember it. So, you know, but I remember your energy, and I remember, you know, your talk from way back then. And of course, I've been reading your newsletter, The Summary Sunday, forever too. So, you know, I'm so excited to have you here. So why don't you tell anyone who doesn't know you a little bit about who you are and what you do? And I just want to make sure that your mic is on, because
I'm not saying anything, so now I'm saying.
Cool. Okay, I'm sorry about that.
No. Thank you, Annette. And I do remember speaking at a couple of conferences, and I'm pretty sure I remember meeting you there too. So that was several years ago. I love Twitter. So I have a company called careersherpa.net, and I started, my whole purpose is to help educate job seekers on what that process of job search looks like. Because back when I started, there wasn't anybody talking about or providing guidance to job seekers. There was no information on the internet at all. So that makes me sound really old, but I love doing that. I love seeing the light bulbs go off for people when they understand a new concept or they figure out there's another way to do something. And so I've really sort of built my reputation and what I do on sort of keeping track of what's going on. Like, what are the current trends in job search? What should we be looking out for? What's next when it comes to the world of work and how we go about finding that next thing? So that's sort of a little bit about me. My Summary Sunday is probably one of my favorite things. It's a curated newsletter, and I compile 5 or 6 articles that are sort of hot topics that I want to make sure job seekers and career professionals are aware of. So I send that out every Sunday.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. There's so much information there. And I am right there with you, Hannah. Back, you know, I remember when I landed in the career field about 20 years ago, and I worked at a nonprofit. That's how I landed in the career field. And I was online looking for information that we could share, you know, use, because nonprofits don't have any money, and you're looking for something that we could use with our clients. And there was pretty much nothing. And then, you know, now, of course, we're in a whole new day, you know, well, 2 decades later for me anyway. And,
well, I'm right there with you, Annette. It's been about that long for me too.
So, you know, one of the things, the mistakes that I see, and even with my own clients, as much as I try to coach them and, you know, tell them about, you know, networking and all that, so many of job seekers think that sitting at home, applying to jobs on job boards, that's somehow a job search plan. And, you know, can you talk about why the job search needs to be a marketing plan? It's not this, you know, sitting at the computer.
Right. I think it's so common, and I think job seekers default to whatever is less painful, less scary, what they know. Mm-hmm. And so it makes sense. You go where the jobs are, and we think that's the job boards, and that's absolutely one method. But what I think job seekers forget is that companies hire from more than one source. Companies don't just hire from job boards. They hire from employee referrals. They hire through third-party recruiters. They hire by proactively sourcing candidates online. So if we look at those 4 methods, I recommend for job seekers that they incorporate each one of those into their own job search. So if companies are hiring through employee referrals, what are you doing to get on the radar of people you know inside companies that might be potentially hiring? How are you connecting with third-party recruiters? Are you trying to track down the ones that might have the kind of jobs that are interested for you? There's a lot more behind that, but What are you doing to proactively put yourself out there so that if a recruiter, a sourcer, is looking for somebody with your background, that they will find you? They're not going to just the resume databases. They're using LinkedIn. They're using social media. They're using the World Wide Web. They're searching for all of those things. So that's why job seekers need to do all that.
And that is so important. As you, I know several recruiters myself, and a few of them are headhunters. They are not putting ads out there. They are strictly working for clients. They are sourcing, and they are scouring LinkedIn and other places.
So quick story. Hold that thought, because I think my backstory and the reason I know this and have always known this is because my dad was a headhunter on Wall Street.
Oh, okay.
And so I would listen to him on the phone, coaching his candidates through the process and telling them what to do. But when he went away on vacation, he said, please check my work mailbox for me, because I might be getting something and I want to be on the lookout. So he was gone for a couple of weeks. And I said, Pop, you've got this huge stack of resumes and like some are in big envelopes, some are in letter envelopes, but there are hundreds of them. What do you want me to do with them? And he said, throw them away. I don't need them. I already know everybody that I need to know for this kind of role that I'm searching for. So that was way before the internet, right? But the point of that is he had already sourced. He already was looking for and knew the people that would be the top candidates because they were in the paper. They were speaking at conferences. They were already known and recognized people in their field.
Yeah, that is so true. And I know there's all kinds of advice about, having your resume FedEx and all of that. But, it is true that, there are, and I think that's partially too, because when you're applying to a job online, particularly to a job board, they're getting hundreds and hundreds of resumes and applications. And, trying to sift through that is crazy. And I had somebody just ask me the other day saying, well, I responded to like 30 jobs on job boards, and I'm not hearing anything back. And is that typical? And I'm like, well, yeah, it's typical. They're not going to contact you unless they want you. So, one of the things we're here talking about, building the connections on social media. And I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and it was talking about being proactive and how job seekers need to know, what they want to do, where they want to do it, and how they're going to make an impact, which I thought was just that kind of, it covers everything. So how does that knowledge, how do they do that, figure it out, and how does that play into sharing their expertise on social media?
Yeah.
Big question, I know.
No, it is a big question. So we'll start with the who, what, where, when, high, the base question, which is know what you're good at doing. All right. There are a lot, and this is what is really hard for a lot of job seekers, especially if they've been in one company for a long period of time. They've sort of not had to take inventory of what they like doing the most. They've been promoted into roles, usually because they were at the right place at the right time. So whenever that is, it's important to evaluate and inventory. What are your core skills? What do you enjoy doing the most? What kind of environment do you like doing that in? There are all kinds of different environments. If you've never worked for a tiny startup before, probably not going to be a good fit for you if you're used to being in a large corporation that's very hierarchical and whatever. So all of that stuff is information that a job seeker would need to find out, because as in marketing 101, you need to know what those where the 5 Ps are in order to launch yourself into the market. So when you know what your skills are, when you know what kind of an environment you want to work for, and you know the kinds of problems you like to solve, you know the clients or customers you like working with, you can then begin targeting companies by providing them with information about your background. Well, they'll see your background by targeting companies that meet that criteria. And targeting is really a bad word. It really means following, right? Signing up for their newsletter, following the CEO and people on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. So you begin to immerse yourself into that company and that culture and learn all you can about them. And if you do that for 4 or 5 companies or more, right, you begin, it
Yes.
becomes a full-time job. Your job is to share, is to help draw attention to yourself. And you can do that simply by commenting on something that somebody has written from one of your target companies. So if they post about a new product that is launching into the marketplace, why would you, and it was a target company, why would you not leave a comment below and ask a smart question, or ask how this will really make a difference in the market share, or what problems does this share, or who's the competitor for this market, whatever, ask a question. And that person will be likely to remember you, right? It's a beginning step. It is step one in sort of building a relationship. But you're right. In order for us to launch anything, we have to be very clear. And because companies do this all the time, before they launch a product into the marketplace, they have a very detailed marketing plan. They know who, what, where, when, why. They know exactly who their ideal target is, who's going to buy this, why are they going to buy it, all of that. We can do the same thing by outlining the who, what, where, when, why of what we are looking for and the value that we bring to a company.
You know, I love everything you said. And I know from experience, having worked in a publishing, which was very, very fast paced, and I loved it. And then when I got into nonprofit, I was kind of told, well, you know, there's nothing that can't be done tomorrow. And that kind of horrified me. So, you know, knowing that culture, and the whole idea of engagement, I know we hear a lot of, you know, it's not about what you know, it's who you know. And, you know, my saying, although I'm sure I'm not the first one to say this, is it's about who knows you.
Yeah.
Right. It, you know, I can know a lot of people, but if they don't know me, then I'm really not going to, you know, have their attention. And so that engagement that you're talking about is the way to get that, you know, to get them to know you.
Right, exactly. And here's the problem. I think that, let me step back, because a lot of times we don't know all of the answers to our who, what, where, when, why. So we have to have conversations with different people to be able to figure out some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know that you love working in a fast-paced environment and you're thinking about moving to nonprofit, if you talk to anybody that you already know about, hey, what's it like working in a nonprofit? That's probably going to be one of the first things they tell you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So at least you go into that kind of a job search with your eyes wide open. So one of the things people are afraid to do, and I don't think they should be afraid to do, is to test your ideas on your current connections, your current network, the people you already know and who know you, right? So share this information, share your job search thoughts with them. This is what I'm thinking about doing. Can you see me doing it at a company like X? And they'll say, oh, yes, oh, no, whatever it is, right? I don't want people reaching out to complete strangers, because reaching out to complete strangers, a lot of people recommend you do that, but that's yucky and hard. And what would I even say? Why would this person even want to talk to me? If we reach out to the people we already know and we ask them for their opinion, hey, do you think I'd do well in nonprofit? They're going to say, no, I don't think so. And then your follow-up question is, why would you say that? And who would you recommend I speak to learn more about that?
Yeah.
And they're going to be like, speak to my wife. She works for a nonprofit. Great. I'll call her tomorrow. So then that's a warm outreach. That's so much easier than reaching out cold.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. That, you know, the connect with someone and immediately you're asking them, you know, can you help me find a job, or can you give me information? I just want to say good morning from here for me to Mason and Jillian Whitney, my good friend Jillian, who's joining us, and my
Hi,
buddy Jeff
Jillian.
Young, who is also here. And, you know, I just want to what Jeff has said too, that building relationships is a long game. You have to invest the time over time. And I think that's what a lot of people do miss, the idea that it's not just, you know, me going on LinkedIn and looking for people that, you know, I might be connected with, or a friend might be connected with, connecting with them and immediately asking for help.
Right. And I think that is, I call it dive bomb networking, right? Zoom, people zoom right in and go for the jugular. And we know, because we're human beings, that we're not going to, there are some people who love having conversations, right? But there are other people that feel like there's that lack of a sense of trust. You need to build that sense of trust by engagement. And I think I saw Jillian say something about engaging with people's comments is a really great way to build a relationship. So you might connect on LinkedIn as a step one. Step two is to read their post and leave a comment. And maybe they're not active on LinkedIn. You can still share an article with them through email and say, hey, I saw you were talking about, or this is something that we were talking about, or I've seen you talk about in the past. Not sure you've seen this, but you can, here's an article I thought you might be interested in. I think too often we assume that LinkedIn is the only place that this kind of stuff happens. And I'm going to tell you, you're wrong. Because as you mentioned earlier, LinkedIn is great. It's a great way, and it's efficient, and it's where everybody is, but it's not the only place. You and I, you said we met on Twitter, right? So Twitter is a great platform. What we know about the people on Twitter is that because it's always been a very public platform, you can direct message or you can call at somebody. I can at Annette, and I can immediately, I can directly have a conversation with you, which not until recently could you do on LinkedIn. Right? You couldn't tag anybody that you weren't connected with. But you've always been able to do that on Twitter. And that's one of the things that people like about Twitter, that it's a broad network. It's not limited to having conversations with only people you know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Twitter is a great place to test and try and find people by having conversations with them over there. They're much more friendly. They're much more open than they are on LinkedIn, and much more willing to engage.
It's so interesting that you say that. And, Jeff has said, great point, Hannah,
Yes.
Great forms of communication, telephone, television, tell your network. And I love that you said to, be specific, because I tell people that as well. Don't say I'm looking for a job. Keep your eyes open. Tell them this is what I'm looking for. Right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So I'm glad that you sort of revisited Twitter. And the reason is I've been active on social audio, and I was talking to someone recently who was saying similar to what you've just been saying right now, is that Twitter is really much more an easier place to engage. And it is so, and I understand what you're saying. You can just reach out to people, and it's so much easier to follow people on Twitter, and it's been around for longer. And I mean, as far as being conversational, I mean, I think LinkedIn, the whole conversational aspect has been a little bit more recent. So,
yeah.
So what would be a good technique then on Twitter? I mean, is the how do you choose the people there that you want to interact with if you're looking for a job? Is it just recruiters, or?
It would be so. First, let me say that the wonderful thing about Twitter that LinkedIn doesn't have, oh, by the way, is the ability to create a list. So if I'm following somebody, I'm following target company accounts. So the first thing I want you to do is go find all of your target companies that are on Twitter, and look at their most recent posts to make sure they're still using it. And if they are, follow them, and then create a list called target company and mark that as a private list so that only you can see it. And then go find the next company on your target list, and the next company, and the next company, and just keep adding your target companies to your private target company list. That way, when you want to go see what's being said by those target companies on Twitter, you can go click on view lists and just look at the feed that comes from those companies. So it makes it much easier to find what you're looking for, which LinkedIn doesn't offer, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, that is so true. And I've, said that to people. People follow lists. I mean, it's, you know, because even if you're following like thousands of people on Twitter or LinkedIn for that matter, you know, if you have that list, and you can have different lists of different types. One might be recruiters, one might be companies, HR people, or whatever. And you know, that is such a great point as far as
Keeping you
curating.
organized, and
Yeah,
it makes it less
yeah,
noisy. On LinkedIn, it's very noisy. I can't control what I'm seeing, but on Twitter, at least I can. And every day, I just saw a really big company. Who was it? I can't remember. It might have been Gardner, or it may have been Pew Research. Somebody, some really big company was posting their job opportunities on Twitter.
yeah.
I haven't seen it on LinkedIn. I'm sure it's there somewhere, but I saw it on Twitter. So, you know, for those people that are saying, well, there aren't any jobs being posted on Twitter, wrong. It's
Yeah, yeah.
individuals that are posting it. So employees. So after you follow the target company, then go find some of the key players, the key executives, or the people in your roles. You might want to find them on LinkedIn and then go see if they have a Twitter account, and build that list so that you can have those great conversations. I have a list called thought leaders. These are
Me
people
too.
who, yeah. So these are people in my world that are talking about career related stuff, work from home, remote work, all of the HR trends, all of that stuff. So if I want to have a conversation, and I think that's how I actually started meeting a lot of people, is they would post something really thoughtful or a cool article or something, and I would leave a comment on Twitter, and then they would ask me a follow-up question, because you can do all that very easily on Twitter. And we were engaging, and then one day, you know, we had a phone conversation, and then I was appearing on one of their podcasts. So
Yep.
those are the kinds of things that job seekers can easily replicate.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, Jeff is thanking you for that. You know, it's all about taking those relationships offline. And, you know, I have found that as well. I have a few people that I would say are close friends of mine that I met on social media, on Twitter, someone I've known for years on Twitter, on LinkedIn, you know, someone I connected with years ago on LinkedIn because I thought, you know, it would be interesting to know her. And she's local to me. And now, you know, we celebrate birthdays and holidays together. And, you know, you can take those relationships, and even if you never meet them, if you have the phone calls and video and all of that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I saw Kenneth Lang just posted something. He got together with a bunch of people that he'd only met
Yes.
virtually, like Lisa Rangel and a bunch of people in the New Jersey tri-state area. And they got together in person. And that was the first time in like over 2 years that they had ever met. And that was wonderful. I actually wrote a book with a woman that I had never met. We had phone conversations, because this is pre-Zoom. We could Skype, but we didn't. It wasn't really a good thing then. So we wrote a book together. We met on Twitter. We blogged together. We did all kinds of stuff. We wrote a book together. We didn't meet till after the book was published.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is so true, and it's so funny that you mentioned Lisa. I've known Lisa forever, and Lisa is become a close friend of mine as well as a colleague. And although we, you know, we talk and everything, we were just had our first in-person meeting lunch. We were going to meet because she's in New Jersey, I'm in Connecticut, and then the pandemic. So we're having on our radar to do it soon. You know, I do want to mention, because Jeff has just said that, you know, you can create that same kind of a list via bookmarks on the desktop. And I do know a lot of people that do that. And it certainly does work. The one thing that I would say about it is that is a little bit more clunky than, you know, just having the list on Twitter.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, but it can be done. I mean, it certainly can be done. And now they have the bell and all that, but I don't know. Some people say when you ring the bell, it works. And some people say, well, it doesn't mean anything. So you know, I don't know how that's going. So,
well, and that's the thing. Things are always changing on LinkedIn. Twitter hasn't really changed much in the past 15 years, 10 years, right? It is what it is. It's pretty no frills, and you know what you're getting. And LinkedIn,
yeah.
you got to keep teaching yourself new stuff.
Yeah, that's true. You know what? And the more I talk to you, and I was just talking to another friend of mine, Valerie, about this whole Twitter conversation a few weeks ago. And you know, I need to get back on Twitter myself. So I have one question before I go on. Have you been using the Twitter Spaces at all? What do you think of that?
I've seen people use the Twitter Spaces. I have not used them. I imagine you will do that. It works well for you. I don't know how well they're doing. I definitely see them on my mobile device when I get into Twitter. They're very prominently featured, so it seems like it could be a good thing. They also have a new thing called communities, and I'm not exactly sure how communities
Okay.
work. So that's a brand new thing, like within the last 30 days.
Well, okay. Well, you know what? I think audio is going to be used more and more. Obviously, I'm waiting for LinkedIn audio, which
Mhm.
has been, parsed out to, very select few at this point. But, hopefully I'm looking forward to that because I just
Yeah.
love the engagement. I love the engagement with
Yeah.
other people. So I'd like to ask you about content because people don't know. And, I hear some LinkedIn trainers who say, oh, you have to post every day, or, it must be 5 and it's got to be at like 7 a.m. your local time and all of that, which is kind of like, I don't know about that. I think it's more important to be consistent.
Mhm.
I mean, to just be consistent. So if you can give us just a share a little bit for people who are out there, listening now, and people who'll be watching us on the replay of some, how to choose your content and maybe LinkedIn and Twitter, and how often do you need to post?
So each platform is different. If we're talking about LinkedIn, the maximum that you really want to post is once a day.
Hmm.
Um, so that's 5 posts a week, which what we know is that like only 30 to 40% of your network will see what you post, given the algorithm. There is an advantage to posting more than once a week, because then hopefully a greater share of your audience will see what you're posting. But I think your advice for posting consistently is more important. So if you post once a week on LinkedIn, I created a LinkedIn bingo kind of card, and it has 24 different ideas on what to share on LinkedIn, what you can post about. So it could be an infographic or statistics or a how-to video that someone else created. You don't have to do it. It could be sharing a job posting that you came across that you think your network might be interested. It could be sharing your reading list or a book you're reading. So it's a fun way to say, okay, when am I going to post today? Let me go to this bingo card and see what I haven't posted about. So varying the topics or the kinds of things that you are sharing is important. There are people who, like Shelley Piedmont, every Monday has her Monday number of the day, of the number of the week. And she features some statistic, and then writes a post about how that number and why that number is important. And she dives in a little bit deeper. So that's sort of something that she has become known for, right? Her
Hmm.
Monday number of the week. So I think consistency is more important. Um, when we think about the other things that we can post, like visual content seems to be doing very well, no matter if it's LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. People like to see photos or graphics because it draws them in. So when you think about the different things that you could post, it could be a sample of your work, maybe take a photo of your work or a screenshot. It could be a photo of part of your resume that you want people to see. It could be a picture of you volunteering. Maybe you were on a cool vacation. Why not try and find the overlap between your vacation and what you want people to know about you professionally, and use that as a conversation for a post? It could be a day in your life, right? This is the sort of a video or a photo of the different activities that I do. It could be the things that you do outside of work besides volunteering. Maybe you are really into some sport, or your kids are into a sport. Maybe that's something you could weave and find some correlation between, this is what I do on my free time, and this is how it makes me better at the work that I do. Videos are huge, right? Because we know that video is a really powerful medium, but not everybody wants to be on video. So they could share using Loom. They could share how to do something in their platform. It could be how to create a formula in Excel spreadsheets. It could be a quick tip on how you've learned how to do a mail merge in Word. It could be, this is how you can search for things on LinkedIn. So there's so many different ways which we can share our knowledge and expertise. And that's what it comes to about. Whatever you share, make sure it's your knowledge and expertise.
Well, I agree with you, and I hear you on videos, and I am one of those people that's kind of a video nag, and I am a big proponent of doing videos. Now, having said that, I hate to see my voice. I hate to hear my voice, hate to see my face. And I put off doing video for years because, hey, I wanted to be thinner. I always wanted to be younger, wanted to be better looking. And the thing is, and I learned this from which ties into what you were saying, that I learned from someone who works with speakers. And I'll never forget her saying, people don't care. They don't care what you look like. They don't care what you sound like. The only thing the audience wants to know is if what you are saying is relevant for them, if it can help them in some way. And, and also they're kind of rooting for you to succeed. They want you to be giving information that's going to be helpful for them.
That's really a great point. Yeah, absolutely. Really great point.
So we've talked about content. We've talked about, so many different things and the idea of mixing up your content. And we've talked also about virtual networking and how, it can go beyond being superficial if you work at it, if you take it offline. And I also want to ask, because I know this is an area that you do talk about, is working, job seeking for people over 50. Now, I would start by saying when I worked as a recruiter, I worked with a candidate who was in her early mid 60s. And I was recruiting in the digital marketing space, which is, pretty young industry. And we just became friendly. And this was before video. And we were talking on the phone. And she just happened to mention it to me. We're talking, I don't know, maybe whatever. And I did not place her myself, but she was a top candidate. I presented her. She was one of the top candidates. And she did find a job, not long after. But she was vibrant and engaging. And she wasn't expecting to be discriminated against. Right. So if you can share some, strategies or expectations or whatever for people who are over 50 and are concerned.
Yeah, it's about being a lifelong learner, right? Age is just a number. It's just a number. You and I are both over age 50, right? Or in our 50s. That doesn't make us old because we are lifelong learners. We love delving deep into our topic. And I'm not an introvert. I'm not an extrovert. You're not an extrovert. So for anyone that says I'm over 50 and I'm an introvert and I can't do this, baloney, right? Because we're examples that you can do anything that you want to do or that you need to do. So I think that the key really is if you are a lifelong learner, you're learning new things about your industry, your occupation, and that energizes you. That has to energize you. At least it should motivate you because you will learn things that you are missing. And you can find ways to fill those gaps. What sinks the older worker, I think in a lot of cases, is that they look like and sound like and act like they're at the end of their career. They're just coasting, right? That may not be true, but that's the way they come across. So an engaged lifelong learner doesn't come across the same way. They come across as enthusiastic and interested. And that's what I think everyone, no matter the age, needs to sell. I'm engaged, I'm a lifelong learner, and I know what's going on, and I'm excited about it. Rather than, oh, I don't want to be on LinkedIn because, people see how old I am. Well, that's sort of fulfilling the prophecy then. And then that makes me sad. Anybody, no matter the age, can be on LinkedIn. And if you feel like it's an invasion of your privacy, then I think you need to do a little bit more research and understand that it's not invading your privacy at all. There are lots of security and mechanisms. And if you don't like what you're getting yourself into on LinkedIn or any platform, you can drop out. You can block the person. You can put whatever you want up there for your LinkedIn profile. Nobody has to find it an invasion of privacy. It's virtual networking is all it is.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's also the expectation. And, I have a friend who is actually in her 40s, it was in early 40s at the time, who didn't want to be on LinkedIn because she didn't want people to like see her. And I'm like, what? I was like, why not? And there are people who are sort of seem old at 40, and there's people that are young at like 80. I mean, it is that attitude. The attitude is so important.
Yeah. Yes,
So,
Jillian, fellow introverts, right?
hey,
Yes.
Jillian says 50 plus introverts of the world unite. Yes.
Yeah.
Jillian is, just incredible. So
you all should, if you don't know Jillian, you should go follow her because she posts about video and she
yes,
will help you overcome your fears of being on video because she makes it simple. So the technology isn't an issue. And then she helps you feel comfortable on what your messaging and how you can do it should be. I will have to give though a little plug. Sometimes you don't even need to be on camera, and there are tools and resources out there that allow you to create a brand without being on camera. And I started a company with some other people, Meg Giuseppe and Andre Pelko, called Career Brand Videos, which does just that. So,
okay, cool. Well, you have to put you have to put a link in the chat, later on, so when people are catching us on the replay,
they can see it.
They
Career
will be
Brand
able to see
Videos.
that.
Yep.
And, I am a big advocate, with cover stories of people having their face, but you're right. And it's baby steps. And there are so many different, there are other platforms as well where you can just do pictures, and it can be just a voiceover. And it's just so much better than nothing. And it makes you stand out in a good way. And it makes you, as you were talking about, it makes you look savvy. Right. And you don't want to be one of those people like, oh, okay, so that person, they don't have a LinkedIn profile video, and they have the URL, they didn't personalize. And it's all those little things that can kind of build that that brand, because we all have them, whether you know it or not. Everybody has that, and it's based on kind of what you are putting out there. And
absolutely.
so it really does make a difference. Now, I have a couple things that I'd like to ask you, and I know that you do a lot of speaking and training. And what's your favorite topic to present on?
I love talking about, well, there are two things. Can I have two? One is current trends in the marketplace. It's something that I follow pretty closely. Like, what are we doing with this whole great resignation and now the great regret, right? How is that impacting things, and what do we need to think about? So talking about trends. But the other thing that I've always loved talking about is how to build an online reputation, right? So through using social media, having a personal website, being more active on social media platforms. What can you do to attract people to you?
I love that topic too. And whenever I'm invited to be, and when I'm lucky enough to be invited on somebody's, show, that's what I always like to talk to as well. The whole personal branding and online reputation, because it really is kind of the umbrella that everything else falls under.
Yeah.
The resume and LinkedIn and everything falls under that umbrella. And that's my favorite topic too. So, so
we should speak together one time on that, Annette. We'll do that. Let's do that.
Okay. You're on. You are definitely on. Okay. So something that I always ask my clients, because I love this question, is what's something that you can tell us that would surprise people about you?
Oh, I already spoiled that because I told people that I was an introvert. I am an introvert.
Okay.
Let me think, something that might surprise somebody. Well, people don't know this about me, but if you're on Facebook, I have 2 sons. One's in college and one's a senior in high school. And they're both very active in sports, specifically right now, lacrosse. So I am a lacrosse mom.
Cool. That I love that. And do you ever post that stuff on LinkedIn?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'll
I'm
post it on, and I don't even post it on Twitter, because I'm that old school, and I might start, but I'm of old school, and I think that my personal is my personal, and my work is my work. I sometimes will cross over, but not with my family. I've always sort of tried to keep them out of
Mhm.
that part of my messaging. Basically, it started because they were young, and then as they got older, I'm like, yeah, they don't want to be mentioned by their mom.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. I don't know that they'd be a fan of that. And since we were mentioning that whole idea of personal, I started thinking about something. My friend Valerie is the first person I've heard put it exactly this way, and she thinks about it as being, sort of the professional and the personal, and then the private, and that distinction. And that's what I follow. I mean, I share a lot of pictures of my dogs because they'd rather see the dogs than me anyway. When our holiday cards, we put pictures of the dogs because that's what people want to see. But I have posted pictures of my husband and I at a football game or something like that. Um, and I know that there are some people who post a lot of things that I would consider private.
Mhm.
um, what's your kind of feeling on, I mean, I figure like whatever you're comfortable with, that's what you should post, but
Yeah.
what's your kind of take on that?
So there are no clear guidelines, right? Just like LinkedIn doesn't tell you who to connect with and who not to connect with. Nobody's telling you what is really appropriate to post or not. So we have to use a couple of different filters, right? So would I because social media and LinkedIn is public, the question I always ask myself is, if this was a headline of the New York Times, would I be okay reading that and having other people read it? Right? If this went viral, would I be okay with everybody knowing it? And then that's usually the ultimate question that I ask myself. But then there's just the whole thing. Is it appropriate? Do I want other people knowing this? What do I expect will happen based on my posting this?
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree, and I would say that besides being an introvert, that I'm fairly private.
Mhm.
Like on Facebook, I am one of those people that has like 40 friends on my Facebook friends, and that's my very little private space.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I've been online everywhere for so long. But I am trying to, have more personality in my LinkedIn feed. And that's part of the reason I started asking people when they're on my LinkedIn Live what would surprise people about them.
Here's what we're seeing too, I think since the pandemic, and we were even moving this way before the pandemic, you would never have gotten into a Zoom environment, right? You very seldom would have done that. You would never have seen the CEO from his living room or kitchen running a meeting, right? We never would have seen some of the stuff that we've seen happen since the pandemic. So I think that wall, and I personally think that's a great thing, right? That some of these walls are coming down. So we think about, okay, what wall am I putting up there that is which is preventing people from getting to know me, right?
Yeah.
So we connect with people and we meet with people in person in a networking environment. We're talking about other things besides just work. We're going to connect based on our hometown, which, oh, by the way, I forgot this. You live in Norwalk, Connecticut. I grew up right over the border in New Canaan.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's little things like that, like where we grew up, where we went to college, and then what sports are we interested in? What activities do we do? We start to see that stuff as being more important to building a relationship with somebody. And so if we share something that feels a little bit private to us, maybe that's going to help attract somebody to us that may not have known that about us otherwise. So sometimes we put stuff out there and we're not sure what's going to happen. If it's not personally damaging, then maybe it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, yeah.
We're human first,
I,
human
I,
first.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And I would just say that my whole experience on LinkedIn changed when I started thinking of just, meeting other humans and not, making connections. And it's
Yes.
kind of that mind shift. So we are kind of at the end here, and I have a question that I want to ask you before I invite you to share whatever and give some information about what you've got going on. I started asking my guests to give me a question for the next guest, and my last guest question was, if you could go back in your career, what would you change?
That's a really good question. I don't think there's one. I don't think I would change anything, honestly, which sounds weird. But I believe that the path that I have been on has led me to where I am today. And I'm so happy where I am today. Like I could not, I didn't know that career advising was even a field, right? I had no clue. And I couldn't have gotten there out of college. I couldn't have gotten here unless I had taken the path that I took. And so it's been a journey. I've hated and loved certain things that I've done, but they all give me the background, the skills, the knowledge that I use every single day today. So I wouldn't change anything.
Well, I do agree with that too. If you change one thing, then you change everything. And so, it is important to remember that. So as we are closing down, getting ready to say goodbye, can you give us an idea of, are you open to connecting with people on LinkedIn? I have also recommended that people, sign up for your newsletter. Give us an idea of what you got coming up that people might want to catch.
Yeah, so right now I have my LinkedIn settings so that if you want to connect with me, you need to know my email address. My email address is in my profile, which you can see. So it's sort of a two-step process, but I was getting a lot of spam and I had to sort of eliminate that by making that a requirement. So sorry, if you want to connect with me, you can do that. Absolutely. Or you can just follow me on LinkedIn, subscribe to my newsletter. Every Tuesday, I have a LinkedIn Live, like Annette is offering here. Mine is called Conversations with Colleagues. It's at noon on Tuesdays, and I have a different guest or set of guests. So next Tuesday, I'm talking to Andre Pelko and Ms. Meg Giuseppe. We're going to be talking about using video in job search and for career marketing. We're going to be talking about Career Brand Videos, which is our product / company. So that is next Tuesday. And that's, something you could search for in events, or if you follow me on LinkedIn, you will see that as one of the items in my feed. If you subscribe to my newsletter, I love my summary Sundays, right? And I am open to individual career coaching. I have some services listed on my website. So if that's of interest, please feel free to reach out.
No, that's great. And I just want to mention that is noon Eastern, correct?
Noon Eastern. Yes,
noon Eastern
Eastern.
Time. Okay, because I know, there's people all over, and
Yeah.
and of course people would also be able to catch it on the replay. If they can't make it live, they can, catch it on the replay. So again, I thank you so much for being here, Hannah. It's been a pleasure, and I'm so grateful that you said yes. Thanks to everyone who's here today. This show is going to be on hiatus next Thursday, and we will be back the Thursday of the following week. So thanks again for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.